The sideshow community, along with many others, watched closely as Chumley's life underwent a dramatic transformation. The image of the once beloved reality TV star, known for his humor and relatability, now faced the harsh reality of a difficult truth. His tears and emotional breakdown became a defining moment, not just for him, but for all those who had admired him on screen. Chumley's reaction was not only a sign of a personal crisis, but also reflected the collapse of the public image he had spent years building. The fans who once loved him for his humorous stories and unexpected situations on the show now found themselves unsure of what to think. Some stood by him, asserting that the changes in his life were just part of the journey everyone must go through. But there were also those who felt betrayed, their feelings torn apart by the truth behind the spotlight. The moment in the courtroom became a powerful blow, exposing the dark sides that had previously only been rumors and speculation. As Chumley sat there, eyes filled with tears, everything seemed to stand still. Gone were the jokes, the silly situations that had made millions laugh. Only silence remained, along with an undeniable truth. And that was the turning moment, not just in his life, but in the public's perception of him. The trial ended, and Chumley was sentenced to 3 years of probation, but the difficult days didn't stop there. He would have to live with the consequences of his actions, with the wrong choices that led him here. However, in a statement, he admitted his mistakes and vowed to make things right, to start over. While this may not be enough to restore everyone's trust, at least it marks the first step in his journey of redemption and self-discovery. In this video, we will follow the emotional developments of Chumley's reaction, dive deeper into the tense situation he is facing, and uncover the untold stories surrounding this case. Let's watch and feel the emotions Chumley is going through in this pivotal moment. If you want to learn more, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe to catch the next video. The past of Austin Chumley Russell, a star from Pawn Stars, was no longer a simple story of success and laughter. The judge's words echoed, grim but firm. "The evidence is clear. Your guilt is undeniable. The sentence is life, with no parole, no leniency." The gasps from the gallery could be heard, but that was nothing compared to what happened next. Chumley suddenly jumped up from his seat, his eyes wide with horror, his lips trembling. He shouted with all his might, "Rick set me up! I'm the one taking the fall!" The scene left the courtroom in stunned silence, no one daring to breathe. He rushed forward, attempting to charge at the judge, but was immediately stopped by security. Tears streamed down Chumley's face as he struggled to accept the decision. He didn't walk away quietly like a defeated man. Instead, he fought, not just with words, but with desperation. The cameras captured every emotional moment. Clips were immediately shared across social media platforms, spreading like wildfire, with millions of views within minutes. Hashtags like #ChumleyBreakdown and #RickFrame quickly became trending topics. However, it was no longer just about the trial. It was about betrayal, loyalty, and an internal struggle the world had witnessed. As Chumley's emotional breakdown became headline news, the strange silence from Rick Harrison, who had been by his side for years, left the public to ponder. Rick neither denied nor supported him, simply remaining silent. It was this silence that made the public more divided, and the story began to split. One side believed that Chumley was forced into the situation, that he was merely a victim in a larger game orchestrated by Rick. Others saw it as a lesson about the cost of fame, believing that Chumley was no longer the naive fool, but a man with dangerous secrets. After the trial, the story of Chumley didn't end with what happened in the courtroom. The truth was never simple or straightforward. It was far deeper and more complex. Chumley's fame exploded suddenly, but behind that spotlight was a life filled with challenges, addiction, betrayal, and despair. In the end, everything fell apart, and he faced a life sentence. It wasn't just a story of a courtroom explosion. It was a story of fame, of what happens when a man becomes a brand, when the spotlight fades and all that remains is loneliness and unanswered questions. The biggest question remains: who will protect the stars when they fall from the sky? The story of Austin Lee Russell, better known as Chumley, is one filled with pain and untold truths. It's the story of a man with dreams and fame, but ultimately facing a devastating collapse. And while fans still adore him, still remember the joyful moments he brought, the truth has changed everything. This isn't just the story of a TV star. It's a reminder of what can happen when fame encounters serious challenges. Chumley, a man loved by millions of viewers through his TV screen, has now become a figure causing a stir in the public eye. Not for the familiar jokes or humorous situations, but for the harsh sentence and serious allegations. When the video from the trial was leaked and spread on social media, his emotions in the courtroom made the entire world pause. He didn't just collapse from the life sentence, but also from the betrayal he believed he had suffered from Rick Harrison, the man who had stood by him for years. His words, "Rick set me up," echoed with desperation. But the stark contrast between what people imagined about Chumley and the reality left everyone in confusion. After the video of Chumley exploded on the internet, public opinion began to sharply divide. Some fans supported him, believing he was merely a victim of a corrupt system and a betraying friend. They flooded the comments with conspiracy theories, analyzing every gesture of Rick Harrison and Chumley, pointing out that Rick had foreseen what would happen. Meanwhile, others criticized Chumley, arguing that he allowed fame to ruin him and tarnished the image of the lovable man everyone once knew. They believed that with the secrets he carried, he was paying the price. On the other hand, some criticized the legal system, claiming it failed to protect someone like Chumley. Chumley was once the epitome of the American dream, a man without formal training or higher education, yet able to rise to fame as a beloved reality TV star due to his loyalty, humor, and charming personality. He was a living testament to the idea that charm can take you far, even helping to build a career on a hit TV show like Pawn Stars. However, fame did not protect him from internal struggles, and he could not escape the wrong decisions in life. Signs of a difficult life had emerged long before the legal scandal unfolded. Since his massive success with Pawn Stars, Chumley has undergone significant changes. His once humble lifestyle seemed to be replaced by a more glamorous image, complete with expensive cars, exotic pets, and designer clothes. This shift created a stark contrast to the Chumley fans once knew, a guy dressed casually, haggling over antiques. While these changes may be a reflection of fame, they also made Chumley feel like a stranger to himself. And these changes weren't limited to his wardrobe. They were evident in how he faced life, with clear cracks appearing in his actions and habits. Those close to Chumley began to reveal stories about him. A former friend mentioned that Chumley once boasted about his invulnerability due to his fame, while a neighbor shared that they had seen strangers coming and going late at night from his house. Although there was no concrete evidence in court, these stories painted a picture of a man drifting away from his public image and sinking into personal troubles. And when the judge delivered the sentence, it wasn't just about the crimes, but also about the waste of potential from someone who once held influence. Chumlee, a character loved by millions of fans on screen, was not only facing a harsh sentence, but also the complete collapse of the public image he had built over the years. When the court sentenced Chumlee for serious charges, including illegal possession of firearms, drug trafficking, and obstruction of justice, no one could have anticipated such a strong reaction. "Rick set me up," Chumlee shouted. And this accusation was not just an immediate response, but also a clear sign of division within the show and among the fans. His words opened a new door, casting Rick Harrison in an entirely new light, making many question whether their long-standing friendship had ever truly existed. Since the trial, social media has become a hotbed of debate about what really happened behind the scenes of Pawn Stars. A segment of fans started criticizing Rick Harrison, claiming that he had known what would happen and had distanced himself from Chumlee long before. Conspiracy theories began to spread, with old clips from the show being dug up and analyzed through a suspicious lens. Rick's jokes about not trusting Chumlee whenever money or lunch orders were involved were brought up for discussion. Many began to wonder if Chumlee had simply been a comedic tool in the massive business empire that Rick had built. Rick Harrison's silence after the explosion in the courtroom only made everything more serious. He didn't speak out publicly, neither denying nor defending himself, creating a large void that conspiracy theories and rumors quickly filled. This silence not only affected Rick's image, but also eroded the trust that the audience had placed in the entire show. The legacy of Pawn Stars began to fracture, with revenue declining and the once popular pawn shop in Las Vegas, a major tourist attraction, now seeing visitors with eyes no longer gleaming with the same excitement. The magic of Pawn Stars seemed to fade, replaced by a darker story, reflecting the disappointment and the shift in how we view celebrities. Chumlee became a symbol not only of personal collapse, but also of a shattered belief system. He not only lost his freedom and friends, but perhaps the most painful thing for him was the loss of public affection, something he had spent his entire life building. The life sentence is a reminder of disillusionment, of how a once-loved character can become a model of failure. In the courtroom, where he didn't realize he was performing for the last time, Chumlee became an integral part of a larger story about the destruction that fame and trust can bring. The story of Austin Lee Russell, or Chumlee, growing up in Henderson, Nevada, is one filled with inspiration and surprise. Born on September 8, 1982, he wasn't a boy born with silver spoons or any standout traits from a young age. Without a scholarly family, a sports career, or any special fate pushing him toward the spotlight, Chumlee had something else. A unique talent for making people laugh and an approachable personality, which made him a beloved figure. The nickname Chumlee wasn't something he chose, but rather a name his friends gave him when he was young, due to his resemblance to the walrus character from the old cartoon Tennessee Tuxedo. That name stuck with him throughout his life, and what started as a joke eventually became Chumlee's trademark. From a young age, Chumlee wasn't academically gifted. He disliked school and frequently changed jobs. He didn't care much for society's traditional expectations for a boy his age. However, what set him apart was his long-lasting friendship with Corey Harrison, the son of Rick Harrison, the founder of the famous pawn shop. This friendship ultimately changed the course of Chumlee's life. With Corey's help, Chumlee joined the pawn shop, starting with mundane tasks like cleaning, organizing, and doing heavy lifting. However, it didn't take long for the shop staff to notice his special talent. an incredible memory for pop culture events, and a natural ability to deliver humorous timing that couldn't be taught. When the History Channel began casting for a new reality TV show, Pawn Stars, Chumlee didn't set out to become a star. But from the moment the camera started rolling, he became an essential part of the show. Chumlee wasn't the type to try to appear perfect or follow a script. It was his authenticity and natural, unscripted approach that made him a fan favorite. He wasn't the only one on Pawn Stars. Rick was calm and the voice of reason, and Corey was often irritable. But Chumlee was the wild card, always making things interesting. Whether he paid too much for items that weren't worth it or got tricked into buying fake goods, fans loved him even more because of those mistakes. As Pawn Stars reached its peak with millions of viewers per episode, Chumlee became one of the key factors in attracting audiences to the show. He became a meme, famous even before memes became a part of internet culture, and his face appeared on fan clubs across the internet. However, Chumlee's fame didn't last long, and from that point, he began to face unexpected challenges and new obstacles. His success and the level of fame may have made him overly confident, but throughout this journey, Chumlee gradually lost sight of himself, and in the end, fame couldn't protect him from difficulties and controversies. The very qualities that fans loved about him, the traits that defined Chumlee's image, disappeared as he had to face the consequences of his past actions. Chumlee's story is a complex one about fame, betrayal, and the collapse of a public figure. What happened to him makes us question the value of fame and whether any of us can truly hold on to ourselves when everything around us seems to change so quickly. Chumlee, once a supporting character on Pawn Stars, became one of the most famous stars in reality television. As the show became a massive success, he started to be recognized on the streets, and his catchphrases became topics of daily conversation. However, few realized that fame, especially for someone who never expected it, can be a double-edged sword. While the attention and new opportunities brought success, they also brought great temptations. With his newfound fame, Chumlee didn't hesitate to change his lifestyle. He began living more luxuriously, purchasing high-end cars like the Rolls-Royce Phantom and Maserati Gran Turismo, moving into an upscale home in Las Vegas, and flaunting a lifestyle far removed from the small pawn shop where he started. He shared his life on social media, posting pictures of parties, jewelry, and lavish trips, drawing attention from fans. Although life seemed like a story of great success, signs of stress and loss of control began to emerge. Chumlee started to miss promotional events, arrive late, and sometimes act distracted during filming. However, because the audience still adored him and the ratings remained high, producers overlooked his erratic behavior. Chumlee's fame extended beyond the TV show. He tried to capitalize on his fame with business ventures, releasing products with his image, such as t-shirts, mugs, and bobblehead dolls, and opening Chumlee's candy store on the Las Vegas Strip, a popular tourist spot for fans. However, despite this success, something was off. Fame didn't calm him. It only inflated a bubble that was slowly bursting. In a podcast appearance, Chumlee openly shared the pressures of constantly having to appear in public. He said, "People think everything is fine, but it's tough when you're not allowed to have a bad day. If you're tired or don't feel like smiling, suddenly you're seen as a fool. Everyone expects you to show up all the time." This stress and pressure began to create cracks in his personality. He started retreating into darker habits. His weight fluctuated, his mood became unpredictable, and he began spending more time away from the shop. Rumors began to spread that he had developed a dependency on substances and a lifestyle that came with fame. In 2016, things took a more serious turn when Chumley's home was raided by the police as part of an ongoing investigation. While not everyone knew the full truth behind these events, the signs of a change in Chumley's life were becoming more apparent. These challenges weren't just about his personal mistakes, but also the story of fame and the price one has to pay when suddenly becoming a public icon. Chumley now faced the consequences not only from his actions, but also from a lifestyle built on a foundation of inadequate preparation and control. On an unexpected day, an investigation that initially started with an unrelated criminal accusation led to shocking discoveries. Authorities searched Chumley's home and found a stash of illegal items, from marijuana, crystal meth, Xanax, to numerous firearms, some of which were unregistered and not legally possessed by Chumley, who had a prior conviction. The scene quickly grabbed attention and divided the public. Some fans immediately claimed that the accusations were exaggerated, or that Chumley was being unfairly targeted due to his celebrity status. However, for the court, this was a serious matter. The public began to split into factions, with loyal fans believing Chumley was coerced, while others speculated that he had changed and was facing dark secrets. Videos, accusations, and speculations surrounding Rick Harrison, Chumley's longtime co-star on Pawn Stars, only fueled growing suspicion and pressure. Rick Harrison's silence only made things more tense. Rumors and conspiracy theories spread across social media, with fans searching for answers to the instability between the stars of the show. Chumley's life began to unravel under the pressure of fame. Previously adored for his humorous and approachable personality, as his fame soared, he was drawn into an uncontrollable whirlwind. Chumley leveraged his fame to open a candy store, launch collectible products, and build his own business empire. However, the shift in his lifestyle, from expensive cars to lavish parties, gradually led to him becoming more distant. Colleagues and friends noticed his increasing absences and erratic behavior. Although Pawn Stars continued to thrive, the signs of trouble in Chumley's life became increasingly apparent. His relationship with Rick Harrison and Corey Harrison grew tense, and internal battles began to surface. Chumley, once the humorous and lovable figure on screen, now faced loneliness and growing doubt. Everything began to fall apart as his personal life was scrutinized by both the public and the law. The pressure mounted, and no one could escape the question: did fame lead him to the brink of this tragedy? The story of Chumley is not just about a man losing everything due to personal mistakes, but also a reminder of the fragility of fame. The cracks in Chumley's life and image not only shattered his career, but also reflect a larger cultural phenomenon: the ease with which an icon can be built and lost. Chumley wasn't just a TV character, he was a part of society, and his story serves as a testament to the price we pay when we are unprepared for the fame we seek. Chumley, once easygoing and cheerful, is no longer the same. The people of Las Vegas, although lacking concrete evidence, still share stories about the dramatic changes in his lifestyle. Longer nights, parties ending in delusion and arguments, old friends beginning to drift away. These signs seemed like just the beginning of an inevitable chain of events. Chumley, who was once friendly and lived simply, now found himself caught up in different habits, a lavish lifestyle, and strange pastimes, no longer being true to himself. In the 8th or 9th season of Pawn Stars, a significant change in Chumley became noticeable. A former anonymous producer recalled that during one season, Chumley seemed to have lost his energy. He was no longer lively or engaged in the scenes as he had been before. At first, People thought he was just tired. But then he began to miss filming sessions, forget lines, and was no longer himself. While viewers only saw carefully edited footage, the reality behind the scenes was that everything was slowly falling apart. Chumley began to live more luxuriously, with expensive cars, luxury watches, exotic pets, and pictures flaunting his lavish lifestyle on social media. This was in stark contrast to the image of him before. A clumsy, humorous guy celebrating small successes like his first flat-screen TV. While the public didn't find this unusual, inside, the cracks in Chumley's soul and life were becoming more apparent. He had become immersed in glamour without recognizing the warning signs emerging around him. Gradually, Chumley developed the habit of withdrawing, living in isolation, sometimes not answering calls or messages for days. Those close to him began to notice a shift in his mood, from someone approachable and friendly to someone distant, hard to reach, and confused. Rumors about his drug use began circulating within his circle of friends, and whispers about his unhealthy lifestyle slowly turned into reality. These signs, though initially just speculation, eventually became part of the story of his downfall. From an ordinary man to a television star, Chumley now faced not only a separation from those closest to him, but also the harsh reflection from the public. What he had built with his fame was now collapsing under the price of being famous. And despite the cracks in his life becoming evident, Chumley continued to face challenges, not just from the outside, but from within himself. A man who had grown too accustomed to the glamour now forced to endure the loneliness of his fame. Chumley's friends began to notice noticeable changes in his behavior. His mood swings, paranoia, sudden weight loss followed by weight gain, along with stories of him appearing in public late, with bloodshot eyes and muttering incoherently, became evident. While these behaviors were not witnessed by the public, Chumley's team protected him with the shield of his fame. And with this, people didn't want to face the dark truth, as they still wanted to see him as the cheerful, lovable TV star. Meanwhile, Rick Harrison maintained a professional image in public, never commenting on Chumley's personal life, but their relationship had started to strain. Chumley began to feel alienated, not just from Rick, but also from Corey, who had once been his closest ally. Many people in the production team noticed that the bond they once shared was gradually fading. One source revealed that Corey confronted Chumley about his behavior during a filming break. The conversation didn't go well, and Chumley felt betrayed, believing Corey had sided with Rick. That feeling grew worse over time, becoming an unshakable worry in his mind. Chumley started to believe he was being set up, that someone was trying to harm him, and the rumors of ongoing investigations only added to his confusion. With the mounting tension during filming, Chumley's signs of exhaustion became increasingly apparent. The producers had to adjust the filming schedule to accommodate his availability as he struggled to maintain focus. He became distant, irritable, and at times refused to film. These signs could no longer be ignored. One crew member recalled a poignant moment when Chumley stood silently during a segment about a classic video game console. He looked at Rick and said, "You think I don't see it, don't you?" The entire set fell silent, and Rick didn't respond. Although the truth was never spoken, the situation grew more tense, and no one dared confront it. On the outside, the signs of Chumley's downfall remained unrecognized, but internally, everything became clear. Law enforcement began investigating Chumley's finances, his contacts, and the sudden increase in his spending. Anonymous tips surfaced about firearms and controlled substances linked to trafficking. But while people still viewed him as a glamorous TV star, the reality was entirely different. Chumley had completely distanced himself from the world he was once part of. He began to lock himself in his house, believing the outside world was closing in on him. Rumors began to spread. Some said he was undergoing rehab, while others thought he had fled the country. But in reality, Chumley had simply sunk into loneliness, locking himself in the darkness of his own mind. During this time, those close to Chumley noticed troubling changes. His house became silent and gloomy, with windows covered. Chumley hardly spoke, only murmuring nonsensical questions. Do they know everything? Did Rick really do this to me? Everything seemed like an illusion growing more intense. The whispers turned into warning bells as law enforcement knocked on the door with a search warrant. When the police arrived, Chumley wasn't surprised. He opened the door, his eyes heavy and jaw clenched, offering no resistance, simply nodding and letting them in. What the investigators discovered in the search wasn't just drugs and weapons, but also documents proving his illegal activities. However, what stood out was not just these findings, but Chumley's condition, a man slowly falling apart but still clinging to the belief that he was being set up. This belief continued to lead him to court, where everything would unravel. Chumley's sentence wasn't just the downfall of a famous person, but the slow collapse of someone who had once made the world laugh. What began as a story of success and faith in truth had now become one of decay. Chumley's journey from a goofy guy to a convicted man had been built over many years, serving as proof of how fame can turn into a heavy burden. It all began on a morning like any other in Las Vegas. The sun scorched commuters on the slow roads, but on a different street, everything felt different. The Las Vegas Metro Police executed a search warrant at Chumley's home at 6:32 a.m. There were no sirens, no violent break-ins. Armed officers stepped out quietly, ready to carry out their mission with a clear purpose. Chumley voluntarily opened the door, looking disheveled and exhausted, as if he had been waiting for this moment. Everything went smoothly, with Chumley being arrested without resistance. However, as the search proceeded, the discoveries inside his home left investigators shocked. They found several firearms, some of which were loaded and unregistered, making them illegal for Chumley, a convicted felon. These findings not only reinforced the allegations, but also created a serious criminal case, with the evidence being all that had been uncovered. In the raid on Austin Chumley Russell's home, authorities discovered a stash of unregistered firearms and dangerous drugs. The firearms, including an assault rifle, handguns, and other weapons, were hidden carefully in drawers and false panels. For Chumley, who was prohibited from owning firearms due to a criminal conviction, possessing these weapons was a serious violation. However, that was just the beginning. Drug bags, including methamphetamine and cocaine, were found alongside prescription drugs like Xanax and oxycodone. Additionally, a digital scale and a safe containing over $50,000 in cash raised suspicions about drug distribution. Not only firearms and drugs, but the investigations also uncovered other evidence, such as smoking devices, hollowed-out books, and a series of encrypted USB drives. These drives were seized by the FBI, and surveillance footage showed several people coming and going from Chumley's house at various hours, some staying only a few minutes before disappearing. These reports only fueled suspicions about illegal activities taking place in his home. News of Chumley's arrest quickly flooded the media and social networks. Fans and viewers couldn't believe their eyes, as no one could imagine that Chumley, once a familiar face on Pawn Stars, was involved in such a serious case. After the arrest was made public, the Las Vegas Police Department held a brief press conference to confirm the information and emphasize that the investigation was still ongoing. The spokesperson refrained from making any speculations, only stating that more charges could be forthcoming. The response from the History Channel, the producer of Pawn Stars, was brief and cold. They issued a statement saying they were assessing the situation and keeping those affected in their thoughts, but did not show sympathy or support for Chumlee. Rick Harrison's silence further heightened the tension, with many in the entertainment industry beginning to speculate about the future of the show. In the Pawn Stars production office, the mood grew grim. One producer described the situation as an earthquake everyone had predicted, but no one expected it to happen. Filming had been temporarily suspended, and episodes were edited to minimize Chumlee's appearance. The relationship between Chumlee and Rick Harrison had grown tense. While Chumlee was absent from the set, Rick Harrison remained silent, not making any public statements or calling a press conference. This silence was not just a reaction to the scandal, but also a sign that their relationship had seriously fractured. Despite many conspiracy theories about the reasons behind Rick Harrison's silence, the truth was that everything around Chumlee was slowly unraveling. Chumlee, once the symbol of humor and friendliness on Pawn Stars, had now become the face of personal collapse. From endless jokes to painful failures in his personal life, Chumlee was unable to confront the deep holes of fame and the dark truths slowly emerging. When the verdict was announced, Chumlee's reaction was unimaginable. His shout, "Rick set me up," wasn't just a dramatic moment in court, but the breaking of trust and deep-seated suspicion about the relationships that once connected him with colleagues and fans. Questions about betrayal began to spread, and the crowd of fans who had once loved him could not fathom how someone they had once considered a lovable friend could end up in such a dire situation. As soon as the court video was leaked and Chumlee claimed that Rick had betrayed him, social media was immediately swept into a tidal wave of reactions. Hashtags like #ChumleeBreakdown and #RickFrame quickly became trending. Loyal fans felt betrayed, while others believed it was just a misunderstanding and that Chumlee didn't deserve these accusations. YouTube analysis videos and tweets were flooded with theories, speculations, and breakdowns of signs that might have been seen in old Pawn Stars episodes. This wasn't just about the scandal. It turned into a major debate about loyalty, betrayal, and the expectations of a TV star. As outrage and skepticism spread, Rick Harrison's silence, the longtime companion of Chumlee, made the situation even more tense. Rick made no public comment about the incident. This silence not only confused the public, but also created a large void, which was filled by speculation. Fans began to speculate about the relationship between the two, with some suggesting that Rick had withdrawn to protect his own and the show's reputation, while others believed that Rick might no longer want to be associated with Chumlee. Although Chumlee claimed to be the victim of a conspiracy, the truth gradually became clear as authorities delved deeper into his finances and relationships. The seized items, including drugs and illegal firearms along with documents showing underground dealings, opened a new chapter in Chumlee's life. What started as a misunderstanding quickly turned into a serious legal crisis, all followed by the public through headlines and heated discussions on social media. Chumlee, once a symbol of a lovable, approachable man, had now become a poster child for collapse and failure. His story was no longer just an entertainment tale, but a cautionary warning about the price of fame and the potential dangers it brings. Chumley's life, from a funny TV friend to a man under strict legal and public scrutiny, revealed an undeniable truth. Fame can build a person up, but it can also tear them apart ruthlessly. Witnessing Chumley's story, we see the psychological journey of an artist grappling with difficult life decisions. What are your thoughts on the story? Feel free to comment and share your perspective. If you'd like to learn more about any other stories, let us know. The investigation into Chumley quickly expanded, and the arrest was no longer just a personal incident. After the police raided Chumley's home, they discovered a massive stash of firearms and drugs, along with documents and clear evidence of organized illegal activities. What began as suspicions of drug and weapon possession quickly turned into a story of calculated criminal activity that could not be overlooked. The police not only found unregistered firearms, but also discovered controlled substances, with items hidden throughout the house, all of which painted a darker picture of Chumley. The police found a total of 12 firearms, including 2 AR-15 rifles, a Glock pistol, and a Smith & Wesson revolver. These weapons were carefully hidden, with one gun found under the sofa cushion and another in a desk drawer. Investigators noted that hiding firearms in such a manner was not the act of someone possessing weapons for personal protection, but rather a sign of criminal awareness and deliberate concealment. In addition to the firearms, the police also discovered a comprehensive security surveillance system in the house, with cameras installed in various areas and some hidden behind shields. This system appeared to not only protect property, but also to monitor the comings and goings of individuals. Security footage captured footage of several people coming and going at late hours, carrying small cloth bags, suggesting secretive activity potentially related to drug dealing. The quick arrivals and departures with no signs of normal visits raised suspicions that there was an underground network linked to Chumley. The police also found drugs hidden in the kitchen pantry, cleverly concealed behind cereal boxes and canned goods. A black cloth bag containing small drug packages was discovered. These findings reinforced suspicions that Chumley was not only storing drugs for personal use, but also involved in the trafficking and distribution of illegal substances. These signs pointed to a life of addiction and a person caught up in dangerous habits, not only breaking the law but also clouding the image he once built. Chumley's arrest shocked not only the entertainment industry, but also the fan community. The surprise about his actions and the charges against him shattered a cultural icon of reality television. Chumley, once a lovable and approachable friend on Pawn Stars, had now become the image of decline, making fans question the truth behind his fame. Questions about loyalty, betrayal, and what truly happened behind the scenes began to dominate public discussions, and Chumley's story was no longer just a scandal, but a warning about the price of fame and celebrity in the entertainment world. The investigation grew more serious as police found clear evidence of criminal activity in Chumley's home. A stash of firearms, including 2 AR-15 rifles and several other weapons, was discovered in the house, with some firearms unregistered and prohibited. Investigators also found various types of drugs, including methamphetamine, cocaine, MDMA, and fentanyl, hidden in different locations around the house. The drugs were individually wrapped and labeled with codes, raising suspicions of illegal distribution and trafficking. The most notable discovery during the raid was a safe containing $53,000 in cash, along with a handwritten ledger. This ledger contained detailed information on dates, quantities, prices, and locations, possibly serving as a diary tracking drug transactions. Prosecutors believe this ledger is crucial evidence, showing that Chumley was not only storing drugs, but also involved in illegal distribution. However, the defense argued that it could have been a creative project or a joke, but the clear evidence made this argument hard to accept. Officers also discovered a series of recording phones hidden in the garage under car care items. These phones contained encrypted messaging apps, indicating that an illegal network of transactions was operating under the guise of a famous individual. Digital forensics teams began collecting data from these phones, hoping to uncover links and criminal activity related to drug trafficking. Prosecutors began forming a theory that Chumley may have orchestrated an illegal network operating under the guise of a famous individual. However, the defense claimed that Chumley was a victim of fame and the relationships around him. They argued that the weapons and drugs were purchased earlier and simply forgotten, while Chumley had been dealing with addiction and depression throughout this period. This legal battle would mark the beginning of a larger struggle for truth and justice. The investigation into Chumley grew more intense as undeniable evidence surfaced. A ledger detailing drug transactions and raids confirmed the distribution of illegal substances. While Chumley maintained his innocence and refused to accept the evidence, no one could deny the clear traces found in his home. Bags of drugs and unregistered firearms were not just a coincidence, but signs of an organized trafficking operation. Throughout the hearings, Chumley stuck to his claim of innocence, but videos showing suspicious actions at his home completely shattered the image he had built over the years. The evidence was not only about drugs and weapons, but also about Chumley's emotions and psychology. Contrary to the cheerful and approachable image he had built on television, stories about erratic behavior, paranoia, and a life of isolation began to surface from longtime friends. Chumley started retreating into his own world, where loneliness and doubt took precedence. Signs of psychological breakdown became increasingly clear as he couldn't face the truth about his actions. While he remained adamant in denying all charges, rumors of Chumley's illegal behavior could no longer be hidden. The investigation continued to develop with information and questions that were never answered. From strange behavior in the past to neglect during filming, Chumley gradually fell into a state of paranoia. Some of his friends began to worry, but many of them did not take action because his fame was still shining brightly. The police gathered information and reports about illegal activity in Chumley's home, but until the case started attracting public attention, everyone remained silent. Chumley's fame overshadowed everything, and criminal actions seemed to be overlooked. The betrayal Chumley felt from those around him, especially from Rick Harrison and Corey Harrison, became a central element in his defense strategy. He remained adamant that he was a victim of a conspiracy, claiming that all the accusations were fabricated. However, prosecutors were prepared to prove that this was not an isolated incident. The documents and evidence collected from Chumley's home provided undeniable truths. Meanwhile, Chumley continued to maintain his stance and refused to accept responsibility. The story of Chumley is not just a criminal case, but a lesson about the hidden dangers when fame is left unchecked. Fame can create power, but it can also bring with it vices and secrets that people must face once the cameras stop rolling. Under the spotlight, Chumley built an image of humor and charm, but looking deeper, the truth is one of psychological crisis and criminal activity. The prosecution built a strong case, presenting clear evidence with firearms, drugs, and a ledger documenting Chumley's criminal transactions. The case is not just about convicting one man, but breaking the myth he built over the years on television. In the morning of the sentencing, the courtroom became a gathering place for tension. Journalists and film crews gathered outside hoping to witness this significant moment. The atmosphere inside the courtroom was heavy, as if awaiting a major event. When Chumley entered, he was no longer the humorous man that the public had come to love. In contrast to his usual flashy outfits, he wore a simple suit, sitting quietly with his eyes fixed on the floor, not speaking with his lawyer nor glancing at the audience. He appeared as if he was waiting for the judgment to come down from above. The proceedings began with a review of the charges against Chumley: possession of controlled substances, possession of weapons, obstruction of justice, and many other offenses. The prosecutors presented the case calmly but unwaveringly, asserting that Chumley had used his fame to cover up his criminal behavior. They argued that he believed his celebrity status made him immune to accountability, and that he had demonstrated a pattern of repeated criminal behavior that the court could not overlook. As Chumley's defense attorneys presented their case, they argued that their client was not a hardened criminal, but rather a man overwhelmed by negative influences. They claimed that Chumley had become a victim of exploitation and manipulation, and that he never had the intention to commit crimes. However, with irrefutable evidence, their defense could not prevent the severity of the court's ruling. The truth and the evidence had exposed a story behind the spotlight, and this fundamentally changed the public's perception of Chumley. When the judge announced the life sentence, the atmosphere in the courtroom became suffocating. It wasn't just those present in the room. Even the outside world could feel the tension. Both Chumley and his fans, who had once loved him on screen, couldn't believe that the person they knew could end up in such a dire situation. And then, Chumley couldn't contain his emotions any longer. He leapt from his seat, eyes wide, hands trembling, and began shouting in desperate disbelief, "Rick set me up." His words, though not filled with anger, carried a profound sense of despair, and they reverberated throughout the courtroom. In that moment, all the silence shattered, and a storm of information began. The heavy breathing, the chaos, and the arrival of reporters with cameras turning on, all captured a historical moment in the courtroom. Hashtags like "Had Rick Set Me Up" and #Chumley Meltdown quickly spread across social media platforms. People were confused, unsure of what to think, but everyone wanted answers, eager to understand how a man with such a humorous and harmless image like Chumley could find himself in such a situation. After Chumley's shocking statements, the story quickly moved beyond the courtroom. Rick Harrison, who had remained silent throughout the investigation, was now thrust into the center of a media storm. In the first 48 hours following the incident, Rick offered no comments, his social media accounts were locked, and the famous pawn shop remained open but refused all press interviews. Corey Harrison, who had once been very close to Chumley, also stayed out of the public eye, further fueling public and media suspicion. The story of Chumley was no longer just a scandal of a TV star, but a full-blown crisis. Reporters flocked to the pawn shop, once a symbol of fame, now at the heart of the investigation. Tourists, who once took pictures of the building with admiration, now snapped photos with an ominous look, reflecting the betrayal and the dramatic change of someone once beloved. The division within the public began to grow as conflicting information and unanswered questions continued to spread, creating an atmosphere of uncertainty and intrigue. The silence spoke once again, but this time it was not just a muted response, it was a powerful and subtle message. Chumley, once a beloved figure, had become the center of attention, and his statement, "Rick set me up," was not just a shocking claim, but a spark that ignited curiosity and controversy worldwide. Fans and amateur detectives began to dig deeper into old Pawn Stars episodes, searching for subtle signs of tension between Chumlee and Rick. One video showed Rick scolding Chumlee for buying a samurai sword without proper documentation, while another clip had Chumlee joking about being the only one who didn't own a shop, moments that seemed harmless but raised questions. Was there truly underlying tension between the two, hidden beneath the surface? As videos and podcasts about the case began circulating, some began to speculate that Rick Harrison might have been aware of Chumlee's underground activities. The question arose, did Rick try to protect himself, and could it be that he reported Chumlee's actions to safeguard his own brand? This sparked deep suspicions among the public. Debates erupted over whether Rick had betrayed his longtime friend. While Rick remained silent, those around him, even colleagues, started speaking out, with vague statements hinting at a shift in the relationship between Rick and Chumlee. Some even suggested that Chumlee had long ceased to be part of the Pawn Stars family. Rick Harrison, after the scandal broke, chose silence. Eventually, he issued a brief statement, saying that he would not comment further on the matter and hoped for the best for Chumlee. But for many, this response felt more like a cold distance than an apology or empathy. Chumlee's fans felt let down, while others believed Rick was simply trying to protect the brand and avoid being dragged into the controversy. This created a deep rift in the relationship between Chumlee, Rick, and the other Pawn Stars members. Chumlee's outburst in court not only raised questions about their friendship, but also ignited an irreparable crisis. From a beloved reality TV star, Chumlee became a reflection of betrayal and the shattering of illusions. Rick's silence, Corey Harrison's absence, and internal conflicts made this story not just about a celebrity scandal, but also about the collapse of a legend and the necessity to face the truth. After the shocking events in the courtroom, the public quickly became embroiled in the scandal. Millions of people across platforms like YouTube, Twitter, TikTok, and Reddit were no longer just fans of a TV show. They had become the jury of an unofficial trial, with the court of public opinion serving as the judge. Clips from the courtroom, though not authorized for broadcast, were quickly recorded and shared, creating a media storm. However, an immediate debate erupted. Hashtags like #RickFramedMe and #ChumleeMeltdown quickly flooded social media. Memes about Chumlee and Rick appeared everywhere, from famous scenes in The Godfather to Scarface, reflecting disappointment and surprise. Longtime fans couldn't believe what was happening, with many feeling like they had lost a member of their family as they watched Chumlee's image be destroyed. Since the incident, communities on Reddit and YouTube began to thoroughly investigate the situation. Users created infographics, timelines, and analyzed every detail from old interviews to uncover clues about the tension between Rick and Chumlee. Debates erupted over whether the tense moments in past episodes were signs of betrayal or just natural stress in a reality show. Meanwhile, YouTube channels dedicated to antiques and collectibles started shifting focus, with hour-long videos analyzing Chumlee's sacrifice and questioning whether Rick had orchestrated his removal from the show. These videos attracted millions of views, further fueling doubts about what really happened behind the scenes. Comedy stars and television shows couldn't ignore the scandal either. Tom Segura and Bert Kreischer joked about the incident on their podcasts, calling it the most unexpected situation they had ever witnessed. Trevor Noah, in a stand-up routine, couldn't resist a sarcastic remark, saying, "Imagine being sentenced to life in prison and your final words are blaming the person who taught you how to price baseball cards." However, not all reactions were humorous. With each new video released, Chumlee's story became more than just a scandal involving a TV star. It turned into a cautionary tale about how fame can mask secrets and sins. The public and investigators began asking bigger questions. How could someone fall so far? How could a TV star spiral into this abyss without anyone seeing the truth behind the spotlight? Chumley's downfall forced those around him to confront tough questions with no easy answers. His life, from a beloved reality TV star known for his humor, had now become a valuable lesson on the price of unchecked fame and what happens when someone stops being the harmless fool and becomes part of a much larger, darker story. Chumley's case not only shocked the Pawn Stars fan base, but also sparked strong reactions from other television personalities. Adam Savage, co-host of Mythbusters, expressed his sympathy, saying, "It's sad to see the downfall of another TV personality, as fame without support is a dangerous thing. Whatever Chumley did, I hope someone eventually listens to him." Reality TV veteran John Taffer from Bar Rescue offered a deeper reflection, warning that reality stars need a solid foundation, or they risk facing situations like Chumley's. His statement served as a cautionary tale for young stars, highlighting the weight of fame and the price one pays when it's left unchecked. While the reactions from the community and other TV personalities exploded, History Channel, the network airing Pawn Stars, remained silent. The channel only issued a vague statement: "We are continuing to monitor the developments surrounding former actor Austin Russell." This response was met with disappointment from fans. A comment on Instagram expressed frustration. "You've made money from his goofy image for years, and now you're just erasing him as if he was never there." On the History Channel's Facebook page, tens of thousands demanded transparency and accountability, but the network's response failed to calm the growing anger among fans. A petition on change.org titled "Free Chumlee" quickly gathered over 150,000 signatures within a week. The debate surrounding Chumley expanded beyond whether he was a victim of fame or setup, delving into the question of whether Rick Harrison was involved in these activities. Social media platforms, particularly Reddit and TikTok, became spaces for fans to share theories, analyze signs in past Pawn Stars episodes, and search for clues about the tension between Chumley and Rick. Questions about loyalty, betrayal, and accountability continued to spark conversation within the community. The scandal quickly turned into an irreversible media crisis. Hashtags like #RickSetMeUp and #PawnStarsExposed trended, garnering millions of views and constant commentary on Chumley's downfall. The community on social media platforms was no longer just a fan base, but became digital jurors seeking the truth, deciding the fate of a television star. The story of Chumley was no longer about a TV show, but about a crisis of trust, a fallen legend, and a warning about the perils of fame when it's left unchecked. Chumley, once a familiar face in the world of Pawn Stars, represented simplicity, loyalty, and humor. But when he shouted in court, accusing Rick Harrison, the man who had been his mentor and father figure, of orchestrating his downfall, everything seemed to become far more personal than ever. Fans began revisiting old episodes with a fresh perspective. One Reddit user posted an analysis of an episode from Season 7, where Chumley was reprimanded for paying too much for a rare sneaker collection. The fan pointed out how Rick's tone with Chumley seemed cold and distant, suggesting there might have been underlying tension between the two. This post quickly gathered tens of thousands of likes and became a key topic in reaction videos and podcasts, fueling further speculation about the true nature of their relationship. After the scandal, real crime shows quickly reflected on Chumley's story. YouTube creators with legal backgrounds analyzed the details of Chumley's case, discussing both legal and psychological aspects to uncover the reasons behind his downfall. Some argued that Chumley was completely justified when he claimed his role as the comedian had made him an easy target in an industry known for exploiting those who provide humor, but rarely hold power. However, some legal experts dismissed this theory, pointing out that being caught with weapons, drugs, and an encrypted ledger couldn't simply be a setup, but rather a clear system collapse. Many television stars and celebrities also spoke out. Ice-T, with a cryptic tweet, shared a message that many believed expressed sympathy for Chumley, though he did not directly support his claims. Meanwhile, comedian Tom Segura joked about the incident in a stand-up show, saying, "Imagine getting arrested for using meth and blaming your boss, saying Rick sprinkled crack on you while you were sleeping." A more poignant response came from actress and mental health advocate Busy Phillips, who shared on Instagram about how fame can distort reality. She noted that whether Chumley is guilty or not, he has been harmed, and what happened to him is tragic. Back in Las Vegas, the gold and silver pawn shop saw an unexpected surge in visitors. It wasn't just fans, but also thrill-seekers, curious onlookers, and amateur investigators. YouTubers and self-proclaimed detectives gathered outside the shop, filming videos and posting them on TikTok and Instagram with titles like, "I went to Pawn Star's shop after the scandal," or "What Rick Isn't Telling Us." Some even attempted to confront Rick Harrison, demanding answers about his involvement in the scandal. Despite the attention, Rick remained tight-lipped, refusing all interviews and continuing business as usual at the shop. He instructed staff to refrain from answering any questions related to Chumley from customers. The scandal had ignited a battle not only for Chumley's career, but also for the public's divided views on responsibility, friendship, and fame. As the media and public continued to search for answers regarding Chumley's scandal, Rick Harrison's silence became even more conspicuous. His polite responses about the shop not commenting on legal matters only fueled more curiosity and suspicion. Many began to interpret Rick's silence as a sign of guilt or emotional detachment, with some suggesting that he had abandoned Chumley, a key figure in the success of Pawn Stars. Others believed that his silence was evidence that he had something to hide. These speculations not only emerged from the public, but also spread within Chumley's close circle. A former assistant, speaking anonymously, stated that there had always been a rift between Rick and Chumley, with Chumley often being treated as a mascot rather than a true partner. Another longtime employee, after leaving the company, posted a brief statement on Instagram. "People are not what they pretend to be in front of the camera." These statements raised doubts about the relationship between Chumley and Rick, sparking a strong wave of reactions from fans. The wave of support for Chumley quickly transformed into a movement, with a series of petitions created calling for an investigation into Rick Harrison's role in the case. One petition titled, "Free Chumley to Investigate Rick Harrison's Role," gathered over 100,000 signatures in just a week. Supporters argued that the investigation into Chumley had been unfair, and that key individuals with shared responsibility had not been investigated. Although there was no solid evidence for these claims, the movement continued to gain momentum. People who had experienced the criminal justice system shared their stories about how they were manipulated and turned into scapegoats, while warning about how the public can turn its back on someone simply because of a scandal. The entertainment industry also began to feel the strong tremors from this incident. Replays of Pawn Stars were removed from many cable networks as the public strongly opposed the controversy. While History Channel cautiously stated that they were monitoring the situation, advertisers began to pull their sponsorships, not wanting to be associated with the dispute. This led many producers in the reality television industry to question the ethics of their work. A producer from another popular show admitted in an interview, "We love the big characters, we build them up, but when they fall, we cut ties with them. Maybe we've contributed to some of these issues." The story of Chumley has shifted from a personal scandal to a reflection of the dangers of unchecked fame. It highlights the confrontation between the public and celebrities, when fame no longer acts as a protective shield. The silence of those involved and the division within the fan community only complicates matters further. Fans who had adored Chumley for years now face the disillusionment of trust, as they realize the person they admired isn't always what they imagined. In the weeks following the arrest, Rick Harrison's silence became a focal point, attracting significant attention from the public and media. His lack of response seemed to heighten the tension, especially as rumors and conspiracy theories spread. Fans and online communities endlessly debated whether Rick was truly involved in the scandal, questioning if he knew about Chumley's actions. His silence, in contrast to his usual image as an open and approachable person, sparked outrage and continued to raise questions about the relationship between him and Chumley. With each new revelation about the arrest and the emerging evidence, the public began to feel deceived. A man they had come to love and follow through Pawn Stars was now standing in court, claiming that he had been set up. "Rick set me up," was Chumley's strong accusation, and from that point on, the case ceased to be just a personal matter and became a story reflecting the conflict between what the audience trusted and what actually happened behind the scenes. Questions about fame, public relations management, and the risks associated with it began to surface in the debate. Not only was there a divide in the public, but even within Chumley's inner circle, there was growing tension. Those who were once teammates, friends, and collaborators started expressing their dissatisfaction with the way Chumley had managed his life. Some claimed that Chumley had been exploited and manipulated, while others argued that he had failed to take responsibility for his actions. Meanwhile, employees at the gold and silver pawn shop also began to feel the pressure from the public and the increasing presence of reporters. Rick's silence only fueled more suspicion. Online petitions demanding an investigation into Rick's role in Chumley's case were created, attracting thousands of signatures. Rumors about Rick potentially selling out Chumley to protect his brand continued to spread. The division among fans also led television networks to reconsider their airing of Pawn Stars, forcing them to evaluate whether the show could continue under the shadow of this scandal. Chumley's story had now become more than just a personal scandal. It was a full-blown crisis for the image of Pawn Stars and the people behind its success. Rick Harrison, once known as a savvy businessman and approachable figure, was now the center of unwanted attention. His silence, though seemingly a brand protection strategy, only deepened the public's doubts. Whether or not Rick was involved, the fact that he had remained silent at such a crucial moment raised many questions about honesty and accountability in the relationship between reality TV stars and the public. Rick Harrison's prolonged silence before and after the scandal sparked many questions among the public and fans. From insiders like former Pawn Stars staff to industry experts, everyone meticulously analyzed Rick's reactions during this time. Some believed that his silence was merely a strategy to protect his brand, while others suspected that it might be tied to his own actions behind the scenes. Clearly, whether by calculation or to conceal something, this silence did not help Rick's image. Instead, it heightened public suspicion. After Rick issued his brief 4-sentence statement, the public's response remained unchanged. His statement offered no explanation or apology, leaving Chumley's fans feeling abandoned. Neutral observers felt it lacked empathy and a sense of responsibility, while critics saw it as a cover-up tactic, making it harder for the public to accept. However, some people in the industry and Rick's former associates suggested that his silence might have been a strategy to avoid risks and protect himself in a sensitive situation. The internet and social media platforms were relentless in their scrutiny of Rick's silence. Old clips from Pawn Stars were dug up by fans and viewed under an entirely new lens. Moments where Rick seemed to belittle Chumley, such as his remark, "Sometimes I wonder if you hit your head when you were a kid," were now seen as harsh and even cruel. That past mockery suddenly became evidence of suspicions that Rick might not have regarded Chumley as an equal colleague, but rather as someone he was willing to throw under the bus when necessary. Conspiracy theories about Rick's role after the scandal also began to spread. Some speculated that he might have cooperated with authorities or provided information about Chumley to protect himself and the store. Though there was no concrete evidence, the story continued to capture public attention. These rumors created a wave of controversy and left the public even more confused about the truth behind the scandal. Meanwhile, the press began demanding official statements from Rick, but his lack of transparency and continued silence only fueled the growing suspicions. Immediately following the public outcry, Corey Harrison, Chumley's longtime companion, appeared on Instagram with a brief message attempting to ease the tension. However, Corey's statement lacked a firm commitment and failed to calm the public's anger. He merely mentioned that, like the fans, he and others in the family were also shocked and upset. The lack of clarity in Corey's statement only intensified the division between Chumley's supporters and those still backing Rick. After Chumley's explosive remarks in court, not only the public but also those close to him began to question Rick Harrison's silence. Some believed that Rick, as a boss and a major influence, had a responsibility to provide a clear explanation of what had happened. However, his silence only fueled more confusion, as no one knew what he knew, when he knew it, and whether he had any involvement in Chumley's actions. Rick's legal team stated that there was no evidence linking him to Chumley's actions, but this answer only increased suspicions. Rick's silence created a wall between him and the scandal, a wall that not everyone was willing to accept, especially fans who were desperately searching for answers. The fan base and public opinion quickly splintered into three main groups as the response to the scandal unfolded. The first group sided with Rick Harrison, believing that he had helped build an empire and brought Chumley into success. They argued that blaming Rick was a way to deflect attention from Chumley's actual criminal behavior. The second group rallied behind Chumley, seeing him as a victim of the entertainment industry and the negative influences of Rick. They believed that Rick had exploited Chumley and left him to bear the consequences of what they saw as the result of poor management. Lastly, the largest group, those who couldn't decide between the two factions, were simply confused and called for transparency. They demanded that Rick speak up, face the public, and provide an explanation for what had happened. Despite growing demands from the public and fans, Rick Harrison remained notably silent. Over the following weeks, he made only brief appearances in the media to discuss less controversial topics, but when asked about Chumley, he refused to comment. Those close to him began to realize that Rick wasn't just keeping quiet, but was actively doing everything to protect his own reputation and the Pawn Stars brand. Sources indicated that Rick had been involved in private meetings with lawyers and public relations advisors, but there was no concrete evidence suggesting that he had discussed Chumley or the scandal with authorities. While Rick's silence was seen as a self-protection strategy, it also led many to believe that he was trying to conceal something. His silence wasn't just about avoiding questions. It was his way of completely severing ties with the scandal, including distancing himself from Chumley. Rick's apparent lack of concern for what was happening to his former co-star further fueled public discontent and suspicion. This choice not only damaged his relationship with the fans, but also raised serious questions about the character and ethics of the man behind one of the most popular television shows. In the end, while Rick Harrison may have believed that silence was his way of protecting himself, his lack of transparency left the public and fans of Pawn Stars feeling abandoned. This silence not only eroded the public's trust in Rick, but also forced the Pawn Stars brand to face serious questions about the legality and ethics behind its operations. By not confronting the questions, Rick may have helped himself in the short term, but in the long run, he left an irreparable crack in his legacy. So, we've witnessed Chumlee's emotional reaction to his life sentence being widely shared. These moments not only sparked interest from his fan base, but also highlighted that, whether famous or not, everyone faces challenges in life. Chumlee, a TV star, now stands at a crossroads with crucial decisions ahead that could change the course of his future. If you found this video interesting and emotional, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe to stay updated on the latest stories about stars in the entertainment world. Leave your comment about Chumlee's reaction and make sure to hit the notification bell so you never miss out on our latest videos. Thank you for watching. See you in the next one.